Hello, stress management students. Well, welcome to the second lecture presentation this week, week 10. And in this presentation, we're going to be talking about the stress-resistant personalities. Um, Remember, stress-prone means higher risk or more likely to experience stress. So, stress resistant personalities are those personalities that seem to just do better with stress. And so, once again, during this presentation, I would like you to highlight or note, however you would like to take care of this, the characteristics that you feel that you possess. Now, with the stress resistant personalities, they do identify three different types of personalities: hardy, survivor, and type R. However, once again, just like with the other personalities, this usually isn't a case where students look at one personality and say, oh, wow, that's totally me. That might happen for you, but I think with most people, they see parts of type A, maybe some of the codependent, and then they also see hardy or type R. So it's usually a combination of things going on. However, it is possible that you might be able to identify one that is totally you. Um, so, who knows with this? So, with these three personalities, I'm going to give you a heads up also. Um, an area where students oftentimes miss questions on the test is with these two personalities, hardy and survivor. On the test, I will ask you, what are the characteristics of these particular personality types? And um, really, you just kind of have to memorize, what goes with Hardy, what goes with Survivor. So you might want to spend a little extra time, getting clear about these two and then just investing some time in maybe memorizing. So let's go ahead and get going with this. Okay, so Hardy personality, um, there are three characteristics that really stand out with this personality type, and the three characteristics are all C's: commitment, control, and challenge. So, um, what these three characteristics mean is that they really tend to invest themselves in, first of all, commitment. And the investment here is towards their sense of personal growth. And also the investment is toward building connections and belonging. So this person, you might say, is really into self-development and growing social networks. Okay, another characteristic of Hardy personality is under this C category, control. And basically, what this is Hardy personality people are known for having an internal locus of control. And remember that internal locus of control means that they really feel like um, I make like I make life happen, or that because of the choices that I make, the effort that I put forth, etc., those things actually determine the results that I get. And that is the opposite of this feeling of helplessness. So, in general, with control, it's internal locus of control and that sense that they are really empowered. They can change what they're getting based on what they choose to do. And then the third characteristic of Hardy personality has to do with the C word, challenge. They tend to have this ability to see change and even problems as opportunities for growth. And if you remember from early in the semester, most people experience change as a stressor. So, something that makes this particular personality style stand out is how they actually view change. It's more like, wow, this is going to be an adventure, or wow, I'm going to grow a lot because of this change. And it's the same attitude towards problems. So, with Hardy personality, commitment, control, and challenge, and be sure to understand what each one of those characteristics actually involves or means. So, ask yourself, does any of this really apply to you? And I would say that all of you have this quality of commitment because, well, first of all, you all signed up for a stress management class. And in order, most people that sign up for stress management classes are interested and willing to invest in personal growth. So I think that probably all of you, have that aspect of commitment. So, really think about this and remember that if you've got this stuff, these characteristics are your friends. These are the characteristics that you want to build, that you want to rely on. You want to utilize them to help you navigate stressful situations. Okay, so the second stress resistant personality is called survivor personality. And in this personality group, there are some different unique types of characteristics. And one of the things that's really noted about this personality style is their ability to respond versus react to stress. So, a person who is more so this survivor personality is if they experience a stressor, they're probably going to move more into problem solving and figuring out how to respond or what they can do about it versus, just kind of flowing immediately into some reaction. And then this second characteristic, biphase traits, it flows into what I was saying, what I was mentioning about problem solving. With biphase traits, survivor personality, um, these individuals tend to do a good job accessing both left and right hemisphere of the brain specific skills. And I have this picture over on the right that shows you, when we think about left hemisphere skills and right hemisphere skills, this is a short list of each. The left brain or left hemisphere often gets credited with being the more logical, sequential, rational, analytical, objective. Um, those are the strengths with the left hemisphere. Also, left hemisphere is really good at kind of the zoom lens, looking at parts of things. And right hemisphere is more responsible for these abilities to kind of be random and intuitive, creative, to synthesize information. So to take information they've learned over here and information they've learned in another place and be able to combine it and come up with new ideas. Right hemisphere is more subjective, and they tend to look also with right hemisphere, it's more of a big picture look, looking at the wholes. And um, there are assessments that you can take to determine if you're more left or right hemisphere dominant, in your style or in the way you look at things or in how you approach things. And um, with survivor personality, they tend to have strengths with both. They can really pull from those left brain strengths and also from the right brain strengths. And what this in turn means is that it makes them very good at creative problem solving. When it comes to problem solving, um, the way it often gets taught is that there are 4 steps to solving a problem. The first one, you have to come up with ideas. And then the second one, you have to be able to take those ideas and create some type of strategy. Now, coming up with ideas and utilizing the ideas to create a strategy, those first 2 steps require strength here with your right hemisphere skills. Now, the third and fourth stages of problem solving are related to your left brain skills. The third step of problem solving oftentimes is referred to as being the judge. And what the judge does is make decisions. So after you've listed or created a list of ideas, and then in that second stage, use the ideas to create ideas and strategies for solving a problem, the third stage, or the judge, has to be able to make a decision and decide which strategy will work best. And then the fourth stage of problem solving, that sometimes gets referred to as a warrior stage, where you also have to have that ability to take that strategy and make it happen. You have to have that ability to actually put it into practice and do it. So that third and fourth stage of problem solving really has to do with left hemisphere types of abilities. So when you are able to really tap into and cultivate strength in both the right and left hemisphere abilities, that's going to make you a good problem solver. Some of you may be able to relate to this because you might be able to determine to some degree which hemisphere which hemisphere is more dominant for you, or which one you like to use the most. Some of us maybe really like to brainstorm and like to list ideas and think of strategies. But when it comes to making the decisions and putting things into action, you'd really rather just hand that over to somebody else to do it. And if you're that type of a person, and I tend to be more that type of a person, that's more right hemisphere dominant. If you're a person who kind of goes, I don't want to do any of that stuff, just give it to me, I'll decide, and I make it happen, that's usually more so a characteristic of people who are left hemisphere dominant. So biphase means, hey, I can really tap into both of the strengths, both sets of strengths with the different hemispheres of my brain. I can creatively problem solve. And that's also, this is also what it's expressing, is that you have this mental flexibility or this intellectual flexibility. And what's also unique to this personality is that they're considered optimists. So, Survivor has its own set of kind of specific strengths that are pretty different than Hardy. And so, again, it's Hardy and Survivor that sometimes get confused. And so spend some time with these two to be sure that you can separate them out and that you have an understanding of the characteristics. So, if the survivor was going to have a mantra, this might be kind of what the survivor personality's mantra is. There are 3 ways to cope in crisis: leave the environment, change the environment, or change your attitude. And I think this really just speaks to the responsiveness, that ability to respond in stressful situations. I'm going to take action. I'm going to problem solve. I'm going to try to do something about it. So that is survivor. And then the third and final stress resistant personality is referred to as type R personality. Type R means calculated risk taker. So, I always think this is kind of interesting. They found that people who are able to take calculated risks tend to be better at managing stress. And a calculated risk is where you actually have looked at the situation, studied a situation, thought about the risk involved, and really planned things through. Um, so that's that calculated part of the risk taker. Now, people who fall into this type R personality tend to be people who are also pretty sensation seeking. They like thrills. They tend to have a real adventurous spirit. So that also goes with type R. And this is a little bit more, they're inclined towards activities that provide intense sensation like rock climbing, skydiving, extreme sports. But I always like to mention somebody, I really feel that somebody could be a type R personality or calculated risk taker, but not necessarily do all of those types of physical forms of risk taking. It does say exotic travel. So, maybe you're real adventurous in other ways. It may come to you, your idea of a road trip. Maybe you're just going to hop in the car and go and see which way the road takes you. But at the same time, it will have been a calculated risk. You're prepared. You've thought about it ahead of time and you're prepared for what may come your way. So a few other things with type R. Type R people, this is the calculated part. They tend to think through their strategies rather than simply reacting. So someone isn't going to just jump out of a plane skydiving without having done the training and without being familiar with the potential risks. So it's a smart or a wise type of risk taking. Type R people tend to be spontaneous. Okay, their inner resources, and think about this with yourself. Do you have these? These once again are strengths that you have, and they help you better cope with stress. The inner resources that are associated with this personality type are confidence, courage, optimism, and creativity. And I don't know how many of you have ever thought about creativity potentially being a strength when it comes to managing stress. And oh wow, I think it can be a huge strength. And with type R people, they do tend to meet those stressful situations head on, and with this courage that kind of says, "Hey, I'm going to overcome it." So so these are the three stress resistant personalities: Hardy, Survivor, and Type R. And I bet with the stress resistant that almost all, if not all of you, are seeing pieces of yourself in each one of these. So kind of rack those up as your strengths. You want to do things to solidify and grow those strengths because they're going to help you when it comes to navigating stressful situations. All right, so just a couple more slides here. Now, one thing that I mentioned was that with the stress-prone personalities, kind of a common theme throughout those four personalities is lower self-esteem. Now, with the stress-resistant personalities, a common theme tends to be better self-esteem. In fact, self-esteem is considered to be the bottom line defense when it comes to our ability to manage stress. You could also think of it as being a critical factor, like a really, really important factor in how we respond to stress. Um, one way that I look at this that helps me understand it is just in this one area. of, um, of stress management, and that is setting boundaries. And by the way, that's our next section. Um, I really do believe that people who have, a pretty solid sense of self-esteem are going to be better at speaking up on behalf of themselves, and that they're going to develop that skill of doing it appropriately. Because if I feel good about myself, that's self-esteem. Also, if I value myself, if I respect myself, if I actually love myself, I am going to do more in my life to set these guidelines and rules in various situations that I want to be treated well, or that I want to be treated with respect. So, what the stress management research does point to is that cultivating self-esteem and your sense of self-worth and self-respect and self-love ends up being kind of this bottom line defense when it comes to stress management. And I've already mentioned this first bullet point here, but the second one is just something to think really clearly about, is that we are constantly feeding our self-esteem. Um, this happens through the way we think, what we tell ourselves about ourselves. It's being fed through our feelings, our actions, how we act, how we choose to behave. All of this stuff is actually contributing to the degree of self-esteem that we have. So, one thing that I like to just consider is, are there ways that I'm acting or behaving that tell myself and maybe also communicate to others that I don't really care about myself? What are the thoughts and feelings that I have on a more, I guess, regular basis? Do those thoughts and feelings communicate to me that I don't really care about me? So maybe one of the tricks, if we actually want to build self-esteem, is to be sure that in all four of these areas, and I feel like really, something that we can really begin to work with is actions and behaviors. Do my actions and behaviors consistently align with high self esteem? Do those actions and behaviors demonstrate that I actually care about myself? And I think this is an area that that we can really work with. Um, so this is, I think, something to really consider. Is there anything that I'm doing? Are there any ways that I'm behaving that I might want to adjust so that I more clearly demonstrate that I actually do care about me? Okay, so that is the end of the presentation on stress-resistant personalities. I really do hope you guys have enjoyed this material, and I will talk to you soon. Have a nice rest of your day.